So today we're going to learn about unit circle trig. And so you just spent time looking at right triangle trig, where you were using sine and cosine and tangent. And so if you remember, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. And so today we're going to use these same ideas, but we're going to talk about it in a little bit different way. And so here I have drawn a right triangle, and so we can pretend like our right triangle is here, because that's how we built the unit circle, was using those right triangles. And so here, no matter where I draw my triangle, the hypotenuse is really the radius. And so that's why I've labeled this as R. So it doesn't matter where I draw it or which triangle I choose, it's always going to be my radius. And so that means that this is really 1 when we're on the unit circle because it's 1 unit. That's why we call it the unit circle, 1 unit. And so what we're doing here is we're looking for sine, cosine, and tangent. And so if this is my angle measure, this is my opposite, and this is my hypotenuse, and the one that is part of that angle measure, like we talked about earlier this week, this is my adjacent side. And so if this is my hypotenuse and this is my opposite and this is my adjacent, sine and cosine and tangent can be written in a new way. And so let's write this in a new way. So here, instead of sine of theta, the angle measure, as being opposite over hypotenuse, this is now going to be the y value, the opposite, over the r value, or 1. And so this is y over r. Then we have cosine of theta is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. And so that's going to be my x value, my adjacent, over my hypotenuse, which is r on my unit circle. And so this would be x over r. And then tangent of theta is opposite over adjacent. And so opposite was my y value, and my adjacent is my x value. And so here we have y divided by x. And so what we're doing now is we're going to use the unit circle. We spent a whole week building this tool, and so now we're going to use this tool. And so in your notes, you may want to draw this triangle in your notes so that you remember which one is y and which one is x and which one is r. And so like this coordinate here, this is the x value for that coordinate, and then this is the y value for that coordinate here. And so we're going to pay attention to these x and y coordinates as we're working through our problems today. But then you also want this in your notes. So take a second and write that in your notes. So let's look at sine and let's look at cosine. So today, inside of sine and cosine is always going to be your angle measure. And so your angle could be in degrees, or your angle measure could be in radians. And so one of these two values on this inner circle, these inner circles, are going to be inside of here. So I'm just going to pick sine of 30 degrees. And so what we're thinking about when we see sine of 30 degrees is the y value divided by the r value. And so the y value at this angle measure, this is x, this is y, the y value at this angle measure is 1/2. And so what we have here is 1/2 divided by my radius. And so my radius for the entire circle, the distance from the center to the outside, is 1. Well, when I divide by 1, by anything, it really doesn't change anything. And so sine of 30 is going to equal 1/2. Final answer. answer. So when we simplify this, it really ends up just being 1/2. And so let's do another one. And we'll do sine of 5 pi over 3. And so this is still an angle measure. It's just in radians. And so you're looking for the radian angle measure, and you're looking for the y value. And so really, every time we divide this, y over r, my r is always going to be 1 when we're on the unit circle. Okay, it will change eventually, but for right now, the y is always divided by 1, my radius. And so what I'm thinking here is, what does y equal at this angle measure? So I find this angle measure. These are all small, bigger numbers, bigger numbers. So here's 4 pi over 3, 2 pi over 3, 1 pi over 3, and I want 5 pi over 3. So at this angle measure, the y value, because this is still xy, is equal to negative square root of 3 over 2, divided by 1, but that's not changing anything, and so this would be my final answer for that. And so now, let's look at cosine and see if we can make some sense of cosine. Okay, so cosine of, let's do pi. So cosine of pi, this is still an angle measure, but now I'm looking for x over r. And so y is always sine, forever and ever. Cosine is always going to be your x value. And so cosine of pi of, for x over r, I'm looking for the x value at pi. Okay, pi and 180 are in the same location. And so this is the angle measure that I'm looking for here. It's still x comma y. And so my x value here is negative 1. My radius, just like before, is 1, which doesn't change the value of anything. And so really, this answer is negative 1. And so really all that you're going to be doing today for sine and cosine is, what is the y value? What is the x value? That's really it. It really is that simple today. So cosine, let's do another one. We'll do this one in degrees. Let's do 225 degrees. And I'm looking for the x value. So pause the video and take a second to see if you can figure out cosine of 225. Okay, so hopefully you paused the video and tried it. And so here we are looking for 225 at this angle measure, and I'm looking for the x value at 225, and that gave me negative square root of 2 over 2. Final answer. And that's all we're doing today.